Did you know that there are people in the Destiny community, content creators, whose sole purpose in their content creation is to help you get better at the Crucible? I would like to introduce you to the Crucible Doctor himself, Ascendant Nomad.
Hello. Thank you very much for having me.
Welcome back, Guardians, to another TDT video. I'm your humble host, Meeson777. We've got the privilege and honor of getting to sit and talk with Ascendant Nomad, the Crucible Doctor himself. We're going to ask a few questions, just get to know him a little bit more. I've also got some questions from you guys in the community, some Patreons as well, so thank you so much for that. We're going to ask those towards the end. But if you've seen this before, it's going to be pretty basic. Just, like I said, just get to know him. Ascendant, are you ready to go? Are you ready to do this thing?
I am, yes.
All right, let's start with the obvious one. How did you get into Destiny?
Bungie, Halo. Started playing Halo 3. Actually, my first Bungie game was Halo 3. In 2007, I got an Xbox as a doing well in school gift, which was nice and unexpected because that was by far and away the nicest thing that my parents had ever given me at the time. Played through Halo 3, loved the franchise. It was my first exposure to the franchise. Went back and played all the Halos from there. Since then, I've just been in and around anything to do with Bungie and Bungie culture. So when I heard they were making this thing called Destiny, I was very intrigued. So I had a PlayStation 4, I played the alpha, and ever since the alpha, I've been hooked on Destiny ever since.
Oh,
so that's how I started.
You came over to the PlayStation side of things. I was PlayStation my whole life, and I didn't get the privilege of getting to play Halo, right? I remember distinct memories of like carrying armfuls of Nerf weapons over to my friend's house, and then we would go and we'd sit down and we'd play Halo or something, and then we'd go out in the backyard and beat each other up, right? But I didn't have the privilege to get to play Halo myself, so that's cool. So you eventually switched over to the PlayStation. Kind of a side question: which of the two do you prefer? Let's start some fights.
You know, at the time, I was mostly against Xbox because of the Kinect and the privacy issues surrounding it, and there's a whole hullabaloo about that. And then obviously, just PlayStation 4 at the time was just the better value option, I think.
Yes, cheaper.
So as a student, you know, you only have enough money, disposable income for one, so I chose that. And I heard that Destiny was going to be getting PlayStation exclusive content, so that sealed the deal for me.
I remember that. Yeah.
Yeah, that was not a good day for gaming or a good period for gaming generally. But nowadays, I'm a little bit more neutral. I try and play whatever I can, whenever I can. You know, since the new gen, both of the next gen consoles, PS5 and Series X, have come out, and you know, I don't care which one I get first, but I want to get both, and I want to experience both.
Oh, interesting.
And honestly, at this point, because you know, part of the job is content creation is you got to be able to service your communities as much as you can.
Sure.
And it doesn't make sense for me to just be on PC. Like recently I just did Stadia, and it turns out there's quite a few people on Stadia who watch my stuff. As I'm sure you have Stadia fans as well. And they're just happy that people actually are there and not, you know, riffing on them and, you know, joking around.
I felt so bad because we do, like, in our group, we do, like, weekly, we have a bot. We've programmed and created a bot that will like remind people of events that we have scheduled if they've signed up for them, right? And I felt so bad because we put one out for each platform, and Stadia, Stadia, they didn't have anybody. I felt so bad, and it almost felt like I was making fun of them, right? I'm like, I'm not trying to. They just didn't have anybody.
But I mean, even Stadia mains are kind of at peace with that whole idea. That whole joke's like, oh yeah, all 5 people listening to this will be very upset. Yeah, you know. But you know, when you do play on Stadia, yeah, it's a bit different. It's definitely it's like the middle point between console and PC. But one thing I really appreciate about Stadia is that the community is so friendly. Everyone's really chill there. Yeah.
Interesting. Yeah, I haven't interacted with Stadia community too much, just because it just hasn't come up that often. But that's interesting to hear. All right, next question. How did you get into this particular form of content creation? What got you into donning the stethoscope of Crucible Doctorhood?
Yeah, this one's an interesting one. So I was originally a raid shipper. I did King's Fall carries. And I branched that out to Wrath of the Machine carries as well. But basically, I did that, and I really enjoyed doing it for raids, and I really enjoyed, the sort of the delight and the joy that people felt when when they finished this raid, this piece of content that they had no idea how to complete. They perhaps couldn't find capable guardians that could run with them, or they perhaps were just solo players and they didn't have a clan or a group of friends that allowed them to complete this content. So I really enjoyed helping people out, and then I just thought, well, I think there's a need here for Crucible as well. And there was a sister's subreddit called Crucible Sherpa that was set up alongside Destiny Sherpa with the intention of basically trying to get people better at the game. But in its early days, it was definitely a hub for people to do trials carries.
Sure.
And there was a small streamer by the name of Dr. Lupo who was part of that community. He with Ninja with Noel and Ramblin were doing trials carries every weekend, and they got a name for themselves. And I thought, well, I can't compete with these guys, but I want to be part of this community because I feel like I have something to offer. So I thought, hey, you know what I'll do is I'll do like 1v1 coaching and do
kind of find your niche.
Yeah, do private matches and whatnot in Destiny 1, just to diagnose people's games and see what's going on there. And the Crucible Doctor name itself is a little inspired by Dr. Lupo, but honestly, it's partially that, but also it was a response from somebody that I coached who said, "Dude, you're like a doctor, man. You know exactly what to say and how to improve my game," which was nice to hear, and I sort of just ran with that. Some people think it's pretentious. I definitely think it's pretentious, but it seems to have stuck, and I'm just staying with it, and I'm okay with people laughing at it because I laugh at it a little bit myself too. So it's all good.
Well, I would argue that being able to quickly identify what it is your goal is, right? Because like one of the problems we have, our group, is TDT doesn't really have a distinct flavor. You know what I mean? It just seems kind of just generic, kind of brand, whatever, right?
Sure.
But with like, Crucible Doctor, when you say Crucible Doctor, like that conjures specific something in your mind, right? Something that you can immediately go, okay, I know what this person is aiming to do, right? So I don't know. Maybe it is a bit pretentious, but I definitely think there's a heavy amount of merit to it. But
I appreciate that.
Yeah. Anyway, what about, let me ask you this. What is your goal for your channel as a whole? Like, what do you think your maybe like long-term goal, short-term goal? We kind of talked about this a little bit on the side, but maybe for the people at home. Obviously, you're looking to improve people's gameplay. Do you maybe have some type of like high, lofty goal you're aiming for?
Yeah, absolutely. The long-term goal is to become a Minecraft YouTube channel, making Minecraft videos where we're getting 1 billion views a day, making clickbait thumbnails, red arrows. I can't believe this happened, because that's how you make money these days. It's a new world. You got to adapt or die, really.
I legitimately can't tell if you're being serious or not. You have such like this very cut through the crap tone. Right, like the way that you talk, I cannot tell if you're serious or not.
No, I'm definitely just joking around. I feel like I would have been great at Minecraft, but like Minecraft, like there's so much innovation in that genre. Like people do nature documentaries, but in Minecraft, and I was just thinking, oh, I could probably do that with my voice. But
you could, you could totally get away with that.
No, so it's so short term. It's pretty innocuous. As a short-term goal is just to make sure that I can do this full-time and be able to sustain myself full-time to do this. It doesn't have to be crazy money, but just enough to pay the rent and the bills, and to support a little bit of a staff that we have. But the long-term goal, I would say, is more so to use. So it's strange. So video games are fundamentally escapism, right?
Sure, yeah.
And a lot of people play video games just to chill, to relax, forget about their day, that sort of thing.
Right.
And that state of mind, that state of being when you're relaxed, it's actually the most conducive to you to learn new things. It's the most conducive. Yeah, it helps you with flow state because you're less stressed about things. It allows you to just take in different pieces of information. There's a very old cliche where basically if you're laughing, you're learning. Where basically that just alludes to the idea that if you're laughing, you're at ease, you're engaged with the person who's trying to make you laugh, and you're listening to what they have to say. So I was thinking about this, and I was thinking, what is the ultimate goal here for Ascendant Nomad, or if it's just going to turn into Nomad, I don't know. But the long-term goal would be to try and try and use video games as a means to help people improve their own lives. I don't know if that means motivational speeches or whatever. I don't like the motivational speech industry. I think most of it is bullshit. Apologies for my French. But basically allow, like, either teach life lessons or get people to think more positively about themselves through video games and through, the guise of improving at video games, or just to basically help transform the often extremely negative landscape that is gaming in general. It just seems a lot of content is made for the sake of clicks and outrage and all that. And, well, I want to offer a different way.
You and I are going to get along so well, Nomad. It is honestly terrifying. I, like, on top of what you said, like, trying to make something, like, the content just as a whole just sustainable enough, right? Just so you can make that your thing. But like that right there, I'm like, yeah, I hear that, right? But then you went into talking about games as a medium, right? Because that's what you're going into. If you've seen any other stuff on the channel, I talk about this every now and then. I say, like, one of my passions is game design, right? The reason why that is that I feel like games as a medium haven't been truly explored for what they can do to help people, right? Not just to craft an experience, right? Because that's definitely part of it, but to actually legitimately be able to take something that, because there's nothing else in our world that has this level of interaction, like no other medium that has this kind of interaction. It's all kind of passive, right? You're watching a movie, you're reading a book, it's all passive, right? Within the game, you are plugging yourself into the actions that you're doing, right? And that can do a lot of different things for what it means to you, right? I mean, I'll throw this out. I'm sure this doesn't surprise a lot of people if you've listened to the background music and might be playing in the background right now, this video. But one of my favorite games of all time, Undertale, has created like such an amazing story that can only be experienced because you were an active participant in that story, right? You weren't just somebody who's sitting on the sidelines, right? So that's super exciting because, yeah, that's exactly where my heart's at as well. I definitely feel that. And man, oh, I'm so glad we get to talk, Nomad. I'm so glad we get to talk. So because I could go on that tangent for hours and we would be here for way too long, but trying to reel this back in to try to keep this within like a rough 20-minute or so bite size so somebody can listen to this. I'm going to ask you about this. Have you heard about our Wolfpack tactics? Have you seen anything with regards to our Wolfpack? It's okay if you haven't. Obviously, you said that you're busy and such. But have you seen anything in regards to that?
I usually get a few people in my chat who espouse some of the stuff that you talk about, but I haven't unfortunately had the time to explore it further myself.
That's great, because I think what would be a fun, and I'm sure a lot of people at home are, well, at least a lot of fans of our channel at home are curious of this, and this would be a great way to kind of breach the conversations with you anyway. I'd be interested in chatting a little bit about it and trying to figure out what of the 4 roles you fit into. You game?
Okay.
All right. So the way that the Wolfpack works is that, backing up, man, I get ahead of myself. One of the reasons I'm so excited about this whole conversation, just before I even got to know you more, right, and everything you just said, is that we have very similar ideas for what we want to do in terms of our content, right? We want to help people get better in PvP, right? And like kind of a short-term goal, we want to address and assist people so that they can enjoy the game a little bit more on, in getting that skill up, right? I wouldn't say that's too far off, right? We talked about this in the past, but you kind of approach it on a more mental side of things, like how you can framework your mind into getting yourself into a position to where you can improve, right? Giving yourself that improvement-focused mindset, right? Does that sound about right? Am I not over-summarizing? Okay. Our side of things is, of course, like that, but what we put a higher focus on is we like the idea of like team and like having a team format and a team framework to try to better not just yourself, but the people around you, right? To try to give you as a player, as an individual, giving another player the tools to do what they need to do better, right? And one of the things that we did to initially open this conversation with people is that we kind of classified some of the major names in the community: Astacross, True Vanguard, Cami Cakes. Like we kind of formatted them or talked about them in terms of like how it fits in with this, how this works.
Right.
And the way that this works is that there are 4 primary roles. We have Alpha, Beta, Gamma, and Omega, those being the 4 primary roles of like a Wolfpack, right? And each of those are designed to be a tool to have a playstyle that supports or essentially operates with the intention of providing something to the rest of your team, because at the end of the day, you as a player can only do so much. Like, just limiting how many weapons you have, right, means that you can only do so much as a player, right? You can only really get yourself into a position where you can primarily provide a handful of different things to your team. For example, if you're hand cannon shotgun, you don't have a sniper rifle, right? You can't automatically switch to that, so you need somebody to cover that long range. So how do you do that? You need somebody to cover your back, right? So let's talk about these each individually, and then I'm curious to see which one you think that you're most aligned with, if that makes sense.
Sure.
Starting from the top. By the way, any questions so far? I want to make sure anybody...
No, makes perfect sense.
Okay. Starting from the top, we've got the Alpha. Their designed goal is frontline initiation. Their responsibility is pulling aggro, breaking open engagements, and maintaining the frontline pressure. Their skills required are quick, close quarter burst damage, initiation, and movement, right? Okay. One of the jokes we always have is that all apes are alphas, but not all alphas are apes, right? You want to, as an alpha, you're the first thing through the door. You're the thing that gets that fight initiated. You're the thing that's applying pressure. You're the thing that's flanking. You're the thing that's just making chaos for the enemy team, whether that be up in people's faces or just getting them off of your team, right? So far, so good?
Okay.
All right.
Yep.
Beta. This one is the hardest one, in my opinion, to really master. Beta is midline, flexible follow-up duels. That's their whole goal. Their responsibilities are to provide flexible follow-up damage after a fight has been initiated at any range. Their skills are on-the-spot role flexing and dueling, must have a good understanding of how and when to team shot or cycle. So they're your good guy Phil. They're the person who's designed to be okay at a little bit of everything, right? So if you need somebody to quickly take over a position, say somebody's doing long range, you need to take that over for a second because they need to heal, reload, whatever, they can do that. You need somebody who's pushing that close range initial engagement that you're with somebody, right? Or your alpha, they're able to quickly swap out for them in order to kind of finish the fight, or team shot, or what we call cycle swap. All right.
Beta requires a lot of game sense in order to do that.
Yes, it does. Beta is one of the hardest ones because of how much game sense it requires, not just for yourself, but for the positioning of your team and the enemy team. Like, you have to keep the whole thing in mind, right? Anyway, rolling forward, this one's the most common one that we see when we pick up new people who are starting to train. Typically, they identify as this first. Gamma, they're the midline, zone control, and support. Their primary responsibility are to supply suppressive fire and support abilities and continue enemy pressure. Their skills are long-term area denial and stalling with a good rhythm for providing buffs, healing where applicable. So those are like your defensive or more support type players. Those are the players that might do like a pulse rifle, fusion rifle, something like that. That's very safe, and their whole goal is that they don't want things to pressure them. They want to provide the safety zone for the rest of their team, provide that defense for the rest of the team. Ironically, for whatever reason, PvE players, primarily PvE players, tend to identify with this role. I'm not sure why.
I mean, it's definitely something you think of and do a lot in, like, Grandmasters.
True, you know? I guess, yeah, true. Trying to keep yourself protected and such, right?
Yeah.
All right. And this one is the rarest of them all for Destiny. Other games support the idea of this a lot better, but because of the way that Destiny plays and so fast-paced and so small, the Omega, they're the backline Overwatch. The responsibilities are long-range choke point denial and informational gathering. Their skills are quick, long-range burst damage with a good instinct for reading enemy movement. So they're your designated sniper, your designated marksman, the person way in the back with a high-caliber weapon, trying to at least take somebody out or injure them critically, and as well as providing information to what you're seeing as a whole, right? They are able to get the biggest slice of pie. That's what's happening, right? And we've got other tactics and such that kind of play and interact with how each of these do, but the idea is that if you can get these in a good balance with one another, right, and particularly because it's, obviously you heard me read out 4, there's 3 that you can take in things like Trials of Osiris or Comp or something. You want to format your team specifically for, like, maybe what you as a group of players are best skilled for, or you want to take it into a situation. So, for example, Trials this week, this will be going out much later, but Trials this week is Cauldron. One of the things that we're learning is because Cauldron is such a segregated map in terms of, like, you actually have to go through a choke point, a door, in order to get into it, and it's so close quarters, we're finding, like, alpha and gamma related, like, heavy squads of, like, heavy gammas or heavy alphas, maybe completely foregoing betas and omegas, are tending to do a little bit better because we're able to hold space and take over space so comfortably, right? And the whole point of all of these roles is that they all play in, they all kind of throw their one-ups to the other role. So for example, the beta might not be fantastic at initiation. That's what the alpha's for. So the alpha initiates, the beta follows up. The beta's going to need some backup for that from the gamma, and then the gamma's going to need something that's keeping him from being sniped from the guy on the far left or whatever, right?
Right.
Everything makes sense so far? Everything cool?
Yeah, it does make sense.
Okay. So question to you, what of those, if you could think that you could identify as one of those, which do you think you would fall under?
Definitely not alpha. I'm not somebody who is the entry fragger, the person who takes the first fight. So I think the best way to answer this is just so you know my context and where I come from as a player.
Right.
I grew up in the Middle East.
Mm-hmm.
I had a dial-up connection, and I was playing Halo 3 on European servers. So that, as you can imagine, is not exactly a smooth experience.
Sure.
There was a lot of latency. So I was perpetually at a disadvantage when it came to gunfights and dueling. I could never, if I was 1v1 with someone, I'd lose. It just because of lag and everything like that. So I had to make sure I was engineering my loadouts and my situations so that I either caught them off guard or I shot them first.
Right.
Right. So because of that, I had to develop my game sense. I had to become somebody who could see the game before everyone else could.
Right.
And that worked out most of the time, I'd say. But obviously, in an FPS, being
Twitch
able to see the fight,
yeah,
being able to see the fight before it happens doesn't actually help you win the fight when it comes. So, of all the things you described, alpha is out, gamma is out, beta sounds interesting, but I relate spiritually to the omega more than anyone else.
Spiritually. I like that.
Yeah, and you said Cauldron doesn't require an omega, but perhaps I disagree because with the way you described it, it seems like they're the person getting like
that initial pick.
They're getting they're getting entry picks from distance, and
Yeah.
Cauldron is very much a map of first positions and first picks.
Yeah.
So often, what I saw, at least with my experiences, is that whoever got the first pick won the round, and that would usually be the sniper.
Yeah, and it's definitely one of those things. The reason why we have it set up this way is not because we are trying to introduce something new. We're trying to codify and put on paper what we see, right? We're observing what we see out, because all this came from real U.S. military tactics. Like, obviously, this is given a lot more gamified names and such to be more fun.
Sure.
But the ideas behind it come from that real U.S. military, the fireteam wedges and such, right? And B, because we were able to look and see, like, there are pretty distinct play styles that people will fall under, right?
Yeah.
And because they're limited, they can't do everything. They will stay within one of these lanes, right? They have to, whether they like it or not, right? But yeah, that's the thing that makes it nice, right? Because you can sit down as a player, right, and you can see, okay, yeah, I'm seeing that what's particularly effective in this map is, like Cauldron, I'm thinking that picks are going to be the way to go. So let's go for like a beta, maybe an omega, and then what we can do is we can formulate everything to kind of prop that up, right? And then we can see
that makes sense.
Yeah, then what we can see is before we go in, if anybody at home listens to our live streams when we do trials every now and then, before the match starts, we'll call out what the enemy's roles are, because generally of how their loadouts are set, right? Loadouts don't necessarily define the play style, but they are heavy influenced, right? I play Alpha, and I use a Mida multi-tool. That's like, I've got like 16,000 kills in the Mida, just because of the speed and the ability for me to apply pressure, right? But I'm getting off
console, by the way.
Hey, man, 0.9 TTK is better than a 1.0 TTK.
No, it is, but I would never in a million years pull a Mida in Trials on PC. But, I'm probably not going to be playing Trials on PC for much longer due to cheating and all that, but that's a whole other conversation for another time.
Okay, I know, what a tease, right? We were just getting into it, but this conversation went on for another 20 minutes or so. So, in order to not keep this video 40 minutes long, we're gonna do 2 parts. I apologize if that's frustrating, but, only so many people will look at a video that has a 40-minute timestamp on it and go, yeah, I'm gonna watch that. 20 minutes is pushing the limit as is. We probably have lost a few views just because of the sheer size of this thing. just to begin with. So I apologize. We're going to break this into 2 parts. Next week, we're going to do the rest of the Nomad interview. Thank you so much to Ascendant Nomad for joining me today. It was an absolute pleasure to get to talk to you. Please go subscribe to his channel to get more Crucible Doctor help. He's fantastic. Bless your faces. Hope you enjoyed.